Good morning, Wabash. Speaking today at Pioneer Chapel is the Mental Health Concerns Committee Chair, Brayden Weiss, with his talk titled, Mental Health Struggles Make You Stronger. Brayden is a sophomore political science major, originally from Colorado. He is currently living in Martindale as an independent and has evolved around campus through his participation in TEDx, the Wabash golf team, and as chair of the Mental Health Concerns Committee. Within the MHCC, his primary goal is to ensure that Wabash has a system for dealing with mental health emergencies 24 hours a day, and that Wabash provides a variety of opportunities for every student on campus to feel comfortable addressing their mental health. Brayden's hobbies include chess, hockey, and baseball. After college, he is hoping to work in the golf industry's legislative bodies such as the USGA or PGA of America. Please give a warm welcome to Brayden Weiss.
Good morning, everyone. I appreciate you all showing up today in the cold and the snow. What better day it is to talk about mental health. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Brayden Weiss, class of 2024. I am a political science major, a member of the golf team, a part of TEDx, and the chair of the Mental Health Concerns Committee. Ultimately, the reason I'm here speaking to you all today is because I've dealt with the constant struggles of mental health for most of my life. As a child, I watched my dad struggle with bouts of serious depression after my mom passed away from breast cancer. In high school, I witnessed the mental decline of my stepmom as she battled schizophrenia. I felt the crippling weight of a family member's suicide when she took her life. I dealt again with my dad's depression and his agonizing guilt surrounding her death. I've worked to handle my own mental health struggles as well. My freshman year here at Wabash, I struggled so immensely in my first semester that over winter break I had a serious conversation with my family about the possibility of leaving Wabash or possibly even dropping out of college for the foreseeable future. Today I want to tell you just a few bits of my story for a few reasons. I want to show you some of the ways that others have helped me work through my lowest points, some of the ways I've learned to help myself function through my struggles, and ultimately, I want to show you why I treat my struggles with mental health as a strength rather than a weakness. Coming to Wabash was a difficult decision for me. The first time I ever heard of this place was through a recruiting email sent by our former golf coach. A quick Google search told me about a small liberal arts school in Crawfordsville, Indiana, wherever the hell that is. Having grown up in Colorado, just outside of Boulder, living in rural Indiana was a pretty daunting prospect. I kept scrolling through that Google search until I read that Wabash was an all-male school. No, I didn't respond to that email. Thankfully, Coach Schmutz continued to pester me, and when I finally visited campus about 2 years ago to the date, I realized what a wonderful opportunity Wabash presented. I was a bit hesitant, given that I believed I wanted to be an engineer, but for my love of the campus, the students, and overall support from the Wabash Brotherhood won out. When I finally arrived on campus in 2020, I moved into College Hall knowing nobody except for the guys from the golf team. As a kid, from all the way out in Colorado, not only did I not have any connections to people from my area the way many Wabash students do, but I barely knew anyone from my side of the Mississippi. Since I didn't have many friends or a group to support me beyond the golf team, as many of you likely understand, I turned to fraternity life for the answer. I was hopeful that the house I chose would provide me the community I was looking for and the relationships I was thus far missing. Once I decided I'd rush Phi Psi, my entire life on campus changed dramatically in a matter of a few days. Unfortunately, the initial joy of my new arrangement didn't last. As the days wore on and pledgeship began, my mental health started quickly deteriorating without me truly understanding what was going on. Fortunately, someone did. Our student body president, Daniel Bass, pulled me aside one day and asked me if I was doing all right. Just like most people would, I responded that I was doing fine. But Daniel did something I only now really understand. He asked me again. He told me he'd noticed I had stopped keeping my hair the way I generally do, and that I didn't seem like I was really doing as well as when I first arrived at the house. And he was right. I alone had been carrying the weight of a difficult class load, a new living situation, and living from home for the first time. Daniel knew I was struggling because he'd been there before. He hasn't been tight-lipped about his mental health struggles, and it's those struggles that taught him how to see and approach someone who wasn't in a good place. He wasn't the only one that noticed either. My freshman tutorial professor, Dr. Hartnett, noticed I was a little off in class one day. He pulled me aside and asked me if everything was going all right. Ultimately, the conversations that I had with the two of them convinced me that pledgeship, on top of an already stressful situation, was causing me to struggle. I made the difficult decision to move out of the house and back into independent living. I had gone from College Hall to a fraternity house to Martindale, all within a month. Some have said that's the greatest manipulation of independent housing in Wabash history. With my third move of the semester, it's not a surprise that the new location didn't solve everything. I was still struggling. I was dissatisfied with my classes, and because of my move, I had to restart the process of building a social network around campus. The only significant thing that changed for me was having more free time, which it turns out wasn't the healthiest thing. Without people to stand in my way, I turned to alcohol to ease my dissatisfaction with my life. While I was in no way abusive of alcohol, it was absolutely a tool I used at the time to try and get by. Yet, alcohol makes things worse. While you might get an evening free of whatever demons you deal with, they come back stronger. I began to sleep through classes, miss assignments, and not fulfill my responsibilities. In some ways, I was saved by the bell of finals, and I went home thankful for the month off ahead of me. That month would be an eye-opening sequence where I finally told my dad how much I was dealing with. As a kid in high school, I'd always been afraid of going to college and not being prepared for life on my own. I thought that if I wasn't able to support myself as an adult, that I'd somehow have failed. So, while I struggled, I'd kept my dad away from my true battles, not letting him see how hard I was having to try just to stay afloat. When the truth started flooding out over that month off, he was incredibly supportive. I'd told him about the anxiety attack I'd had during my physics final that semester. It was something I'd never experienced before, and was something I was worried about having affecting me down the road. He calmly assured me how it was normal to have those kinds of feelings, that we should investigate it and see why something I said I wanted to be doing triggered such an extreme response. I began to realize that a physics degree wasn't in my future, that it was creating a version of me that was overburdened and unhappy. Realizing that was both a relief and a burden. While I'd managed to put a finger on why I was in the worst mental state of my life, that finger was placed on what I had assigned to be my goal for the next 4 years, and likely what I'd assigned to be my life after college. Removing physics and my goal of being an engineer meant reassessing who I wanted to be and what I wanted to accomplish. I didn't really know what that might be. I panicked again. How was I supposed to know what my life's purpose was at 19 years old? How was I supposed to decide that over the coming year? The only thing I knew I loved was golf, and even that was at a standstill because of COVID. I wanted more than anything to do something that I enjoyed, and all that Wabash had given me thus far was 3 months of being miserable. I was ready to pull the handle to eject. Thankfully, my dad, my grandparents, and some of our family friends convinced me to give it another semester. Later that month, Daniel reached out to me to see if I would be at all interested in a position on the Mental Health Concerns Committee. He'd seen the way I fought with my mental health all the last semester, and he gave me an opportunity to both have some purpose on campus and a way to utilize some of what I had learned to help others in our community. I went on that spring to find that I loved studying the field of political science. I got involved with the Mental Health Concerns Committee, helping to jumpstart it after COVID forced it to fizzle. Athletics finally resumed, and the golf season afforded me an opportunity to perform as I came to Wabash to do. And here I am today, as chair of Mental Health Concerns Committee, speaking at chapel as a sophomore. At my lowest point, never would I have thought any of this was in my future. But it was. Ultimately, this all goes to say that things got better for me. They always do. This isn't saying that I don't have bad days or even bad weeks. Hell, I'm sure my anxiety is going to have me shaking as soon as I walk away from this podium. But ultimately, I understand that things do get better. And there are a number of things that these experiences have taught me which will help things get better faster or make the bad days not as bad. Now, this is the part of the program where I get to mention that while I believe I'm qualified through my life's experiences to give some general tips on mental health, I'm in no way a medical professional trained in this field. If you're noticing that you're having extreme feelings, especially those that might include self-harm or the harm of others, it's important that you seek professional help. We have a fantastic counseling center here at Wabash who are all prepared and equipped to help you. With that being said, there's a multitude of things that I believe you might be able to take away from my story. But there are four that I'd like to focus on. 2 about how to help yourself, and 2 about how to help someone else. Number 1, sometimes you have to change things that aren't working. There's times when that change will have to be large. There's times when that change might be small. But ultimately, if you're struggling with your mental health, there's something that needs to change. This isn't to say that all of mental health is self-help or that mental health problems aren't a disease. The change I'm referring to could range anywhere from going to a therapist once a week, going on antidepressant medication, or something so simple as going to the gym. Other times, changes might not be that simple. I had to change a lot of things before I finally started to tackle some of my mental health issues, namely my entire major and my plan for how I'd start building the groundwork for my entire life. Change can be hard, trust me, I know. But if something isn't working, it's important to recognize that change can be necessary. Number 2, don't be afraid to ask for help. Especially here at Wabash, your brothers, your faculty, and your staff are here for you. Wabash is a family. I think I can safely assume that's a fundamental reason why a lot of us decided to come here. All of us are here to support one another. And when a brother expresses a need for help, we rally to make sure you're taken care of. If you're having a hard time, reach out to someone you trust within your circle. Once you do, that's the first step in getting yourself to where you want to be. My story also holds some takeaways for those of us who have the capacity to help someone else through their struggles. I'd say, here's what my story holds for you. Number 3, pay attention to those around you. If you notice someone has stopped keeping their hair the way they generally do, or if they haven't been showering, or if they're a little spacier than usual in class, or if they're starting to skip or be late, it's probably a good time to check in. The smallest little things can be signals of a deeper problem underneath. If Professor Hartnett hadn't noticed my class participation changing and offered to help me, I never would have approached him for help. If Daniel hadn't noticed my hair was a mess, I wouldn't have approached him for help. Ultimately, you'd much rather check in with someone who might be struggling and have a false alarm than to shy away from checking in with someone who is having a hard time. Number 4, when you're asking how someone's doing, always ask twice. We've all been trained throughout our lives that when someone asks how we're doing, we'll respond, "Oh yeah, I'm doing fine, how are you?" Yet, behind that trained answer on the exterior, many of us are struggling. Asking twice shows that person that you're really there to listen to them and to help them if they express the need. If Daniel hadn't asked me twice while I was struggling, I would have shrugged him away and continued the same cycle. I'm hopeful that these pieces of advice might be of use to everyone in the chapel here today. Whether you're in need of help now or are in the position to help someone else, these things can be useful when dealing with mental health issues. I'm also hopeful that the stigma surrounding mental health can be overcome at this college. Specifically among men, we're vulnerable to staying quiet about our problems, or feeling ashamed that we're experiencing depression, anxiety, or other issues. Battling this stigma is what MHCC has put a focus on and continues to try and address. As I mentioned earlier this morning, I firmly believe that I stand here in front of you as the person I am because I've struggled with my mental health. My battles with anxiety and depression have taught me a lot about life and a lot about myself. I've managed to control and understand the way I struggle to be able to function in daily life, and ultimately well enough to be speaking in front of you all today. I truly believe that's something I should be proud of, and I am. I'm proud of the strength and resilience I've shown to fight my battles with mental health. I'm hopeful that maybe you all could be too. Thank you.